Well, we are back on the Unapologetic Podcast. I'm Brandt Merritt.
I'm Jonathon Woodyard.
And we're post-Thanksgiving, getting close to Christmas. Had a couple weeks off. We drove down to Florida. You guys were in Texas, so we both got some warm weather before we came back to freezing cold weather.
Yeah, it wasn't hot. We rolled into Houston, and it was 77. And so when I'm rolling into Houston at 77 degrees for Thanksgiving, I'm like, oh, I don't like warm weather during the holidays. But it cooled off, and it was in the low 60s, mid 60s. Okay. And the evenings were cool, and it was nice.
We were 80s, except for Friday.
Oh, you went to, that was good for you. You went to Disney.
Back home to Lakeland and saw family and did a couple theme parks and got the scratch the itch from Mickey and Universal that we missed from moving back up here. So yeah, it was good. It was a good break, but for those who don't work in higher ed, I mean, the compression of time from Thanksgiving break to then commencement for winter and Christmas break is tight. So we're literally in the middle of our last week of class. Next week is commencement. So it's a quick turnaround for us, for students, and a lot happening in a short amount of time. These 2 weeks. A lot happening
in these 2 weeks, and then we're here a week after. The offices are still open, and then we have this, what do we call it, energy conservation days, where we shut down campus for several weeks until the new year. And so you really have to start getting things ready for the return in this last 3 weeks. So for us, there's events because it's Christmas week, and there's a Christmas tree lighting. There were events yesterday. There are events today. So there's a lot going on now. Then there's stuff next week during finals week. But then we students are gone. We have a week left before we all kind of disperse. And so we're trying to capture that week to get ready for the spring semester. Yeah. So it's a lot going on here at the end.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one of those things tonight is so we're recording this on a Thursday. Our employee staff faculty Christmas party is tonight. I have volunteered as tribute to do trivia for the dinner tonight, which will be fun. But I thought, it's always a fun little icebreaker of Christmas season. I'm going to have a lot of trivia questions around Christmas movies. Is there or are there some Christmas movies that you guys always try to put on the watch list?
I'm not sure that there are Christmas movies we put on the watch list. That's not really a thing for us. But when I think of Christmas movies, the one that, if I'm thinking about, it's snowing outside, comfortable evening, fireplace on, and watch a movie.
Die Hard.
No, not Die Hard.
Okay.
Oh, Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
I agree.
I think of Polar Express.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just one of the most fun things to watch during this season. So that's the first one that comes to mind for me.
That was my dad's favorite for sure.
Yeah. So there's that one. Or sit down and watch the whole Lord of the Rings series. For some reason, I don't know that that's a Christmas.
I think they all came out during Christmas.
Came out something like so did Star Wars. Star Wars did
a lot
the same
of Star Wars did too. Yeah, I can see that. And Harry Potter always gets associated with Christmas too, because they came out around that time, or always have Christmas scenes.
Yeah.
So we I just got so many one-liners. We just always are quoting it throughout the year. Christmas Vacation is just such a funny movie. Probably not great for the kiddos to watch. We've not shown that one to them yet.
Right.
But we love that one. And I didn't love it when it first came out, but I've really grown to appreciate Elf. I think it's
we've already watched it like twice, I think. Yeah. It was on TV, so we didn't rent the movie off of Amazon Prime or anything. It was on TV. It's like, oh, it's funny.
Yeah.
And we've watched it. I think it's been on a couple of times in the house.
Yeah. But that's a good one. A sleeper Christmas movie, if you've not watched it yet. Do you like Christmas Carol as a story?
I've heard of it, haven't watched it.
Okay. Well, there's a good kind of biopic on Charles Dickens.
Christmas Carol.
Scrooge.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I've seen versions of that. So which version?
So it's like a biopic on Charles Dickens making A Christmas Carol.
No, I've never seen that.
It's called The Man Who Invented Christmas.
Okay.
It's a good, I really like it. Chris and I. So anyway,
put it on the list.
Put it on the list. So we're going to talk today on, I've kind of framed it as the theology of work. And you spoke at chapel on Monday kind of about this idea of all of Christ for all of life and how that works with vocation. So I thought it'd just be kind of a neat little thing to touch on a little bit. And you've been reading some more on it too. But just the idea, when we talk a lot about what we do here at SBU, it's preparing students for a career, but not just to be a Christian in a job. I mean, it's a holistic look at what that means. And so I guess maybe unpack what Monday's Chapel was a little bit and how that plays into the topic.
Yeah, so Monday's Chapel, I wanted to come off of 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and we always quote chapter 10, verse 31.
Yep.
People have it memorized. They'll say, do whatever you do in life, do for the glory of God. And that's true. And I wanted to unpack that for students and call them to this kind of life of following Jesus and thinking about all things, no matter what they're doing, from this perspective of I'm aiming to make Jesus famous with my life. So I wanted to unpack that verse, though, in context, because when Paul says whether you eat or drink, he has something specific in mind there. Namely, he has this idea of putting your allegiance to the one true and living God on display. Eating and drinking, if you go back in the context of 1 Corinthians chapter 10, have to go all the way back to chapter 8 for this section that talks about idolatry, begins back in chapter 8. And so 1 Corinthians chapter 8, he begins to talk about the fleeing from idolatry. The Corinthian church would have been surrounded by idols. They would have been surrounded by pagan feasts and festivals. And so when you become a Christian, all of a sudden it's like, okay, what do I do now in this new situation? What do I do now that I'm a follower of Christ, and yet my friends are having a dinner and they're going to eat meat that has either in that moment been sacrificed to a false god, or in the past this meat was used in some sacrificial ceremony to honor some pagan deity. What do I do? And so Christianity changes things, right? So you have to start asking these sorts of questions. Do I go to my friend's gay marriage or not? Do I go to that ceremony? Do I go to, what do I do when my friends start partaking in this thing? It's just you start thinking differently about reality as a Christian. So that's what Paul's addressing. And he talks about eating and drinking several times in those 3 chapters. And so when he comes to the end there in 1 Corinthians 10:31, he's kind of bringing this discussion to a culmination. And he says, listen, whether you eat or drink, so the food offered to an idol or whatever the drink is, whatever you're doing, do for God's glory. Put your allegiance to the one true and living God on display. And he broadens that out from eating and drinking outside of the pagan feasts and outside of those kind of narrow circumstances. He broadens it out to all of life. He says, whatever and all. So whatever you do all to the glory of God. So what he's done, he's taken all of life and he's put it under the banner of for the glory of God. So I wanted to unpack that for our students and then apply it very specifically to their pursuit of a degree and a vocation. And so we have students here that are majoring in lots of different things. They are going to go get lots of different jobs, and we want them to undertake those jobs, their vocations, and aim at putting God's glory on display. So that was what I wanted to do at the beginning, is take that verse and press it in the direction of, we're an educational institution. We want you to graduate with a degree. We want you to go get a great job and have a great life. But we want you to do that ultimately for the glory of God, which is why you exist. Isaiah 43:7 tells us that we've been created for God's glory. So go and fulfill your God-given design.
Yeah. And then that plays out in some ways. We were talking a little bit earlier of, we have a lot of students who are studying to be pastors or missionaries or youth ministers, work in ministry. We got a larger number of students working to do other things. And so it's probably tends to be easier, I think, for someone going into ministry, or even us working at a Christian college, to say, okay, this is how I can clearly see what I'm doing is for the glory of God. So there's like this secular, sacred type of idea. Yeah. But then we got a lot of students going into other fields like, okay, I'm going to be a researcher, psychology research, thinking of Kellen Hendricks here. He's doing research on short-term memory and all this. Okay, how does that fit into it? So as you kind of think through that, and as we're trying to work with students, I mean, what's a good way to think about the secular sacred, or students who are not going into ministry necessarily?
Right. Well, one, I think first thing you have to do is realize the sacred versus secular divide is something that is an illegitimate way to look at the world, right?
Yep.
So start there. You should reform your mind. Think differently. See everything as sacred. So we've talked about this, and you go back to the medieval age, for instance, and you had the sacred work, right? You had a bishop or monks and nuns who were the really holy ones that retreated from the world and sat in their cells and prayed. And, Martin Luther was an Augustinian monk, and he would confess and confess and confess. And finally, one of the abbots that was overseeing the monastery where he was told him, Martin, go do something worth confessing.
Right.
But that's the holy life, right? This kind of monastic existence, or you're a bishop or a priest, you administer the sacraments. That's the really Christian, holy, sacred work, right? And then there was everybody else. There was the farmer and the blacksmith and all this other secular type of work that didn't have any holy, sacred connotations. And so that's the way the world was divided. For a while, and enter Luther, I just mentioned, enter John Calvin, enter the Protestant Reformation, and that broke that down. That said, listen, there's no divide between sacred and secular. Everything is holy to the Lord. And I think what they're doing, they're reading their Bible, right? They're reading Isaiah 43 and seeing that your very existence is for the glory of God. They're reading Paul in 1 Corinthians 10, saying, hey, whatever we do, all of it should be done to the glory of God. And so whether you are a pastor or a plumber, you do your work for God's glory.
Yeah.
And so that's the place to begin, is in your mind, you should crucify this thinking that there is sacred versus secular in terms of work or doing. No, it should all be sacred. It should all be done under the lordship of Christ. It should all be done for the glory of God. And so that's step one.
And then maybe it's step 2 or 3, but that kind of next level is, okay, beyond just, I like how you phrased it when we were talking earlier. I might be stealing your thunder.
That's fine.
You're not just don't go be a Christian at work, but how is your work?
Well, do go be a Christian at work.
Don't merely be a Christian at work, but kind of unpack what you were thinking on there too.
Yeah, so I think this is something that Nancy Piercy in this book, Total Truth, has helped me to see. She wrote this book back in 2004. I read it a couple of years after it came out, and then read it again. Just finished it last night, actually, the last chapter. Something that she presses, and I tried to actually press in a chapel message, was let's have this kind of overarching, do all things to the glory of God, and then have 2 kind of bullet points under it. The first bullet point is, yes, that means go be a Christian in all of life, even at work.
Have integrity,
right?
don't sin.
So put on display Christian virtues while you work. Be, the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, gentleness, self-control. Those should all characterize you as a Christian, even while you're at work, right? You
no
go,
matter where you are, like that should be, yes.
That's who you are. So yes, go to work and be a Christian. That's one of the things it means to do all things for the glory of God. If you go to a bank, be a person of integrity, work hard, show up on time, don't steal, right? If you are teaching children, then treat them appropriately and be kind and understanding and patient and all these things. Be a Christian at work. That's absolutely true. You don't turn off your Christianity at any point, right? And this goes for athletes, right? So if you step onto the football field, if you're a Christian, you're still a Christian on the football field. So how you talk to other players, how you participate according to the rules, what it looks like, in terms of not being a prideful person, but being a humble person, right? God opposes the proud, gives grace to the humble. You don't turn that off because you put on a uniform. So we're Christians at all times. So be a Christian at work, be a Christian at school, be a Christian all the time. So that's one of the things I'm trying to press into students and people I'm investing in, is like, we never shut this off. It's all of Christ for all of life. So that's bullet point 1. And I think Christians pretty much agree with that. They get that.
Yeah.
We're inconsistent in living it out because we're still sinful, right? We have the power of sin is broken. The presence of sin remains. So we're still battling indwelling sin. So we know we should be Christians at work. We know we should be Christians all the time. And then we're inconsistent. That's why we hope in Jesus and forgiveness and the cross. But the second part we're not so good at is that not only should you be a Christian at work, you should think about your work from a Christian worldview. And what I mean is you should, yes, be a Christian while you're there, but you should think about how does my vocation, how does the work that I'm doing actually contribute to the purposes of God? Mm-hmm. How do I think about that vocation from a Christian worldview? A couple of illustrations. One, think about a nurse. You should be a godly nurse. Yes, that's being a Christian at work. But you should also think about nursing from a Christian worldview. Nursing serves other people. Nursing puts back together or attempts to put back together what the fall has broken. So you're healing bones, you're curing sickness, that sort of thing. So you're caring for people, you're loving people, you're serving people, and you're combating the effects of the fall. Mm-hmm. And so you're loving your neighbor. And you're caring for those who are created in the image of God. So now all of a sudden, you're not just thinking about what does it mean to be a godly nurse. You're thinking about how nursing fits into the purposes of God. Or think about a law enforcement officer. They protect, they serve, but they're also trying to establish justice and righteousness in the earth. Well, our God, Jeremiah 9:24, is a God who delights in he delights in justice and righteousness in all the earth, right? So here's a God of justice and a God of righteousness, and here you are in this profession that's aiming to help create a just and righteous society and serve those who are creating the image of God. So now, not only should you be a Christian cop, you should think about being a police officer from a Christian worldview. So don't just be Christians in the world. Think about your vocation from a Christian worldview. Last kind of illustration thing about teachers, all the way back to maybe kindergarten or first grade. I don't remember what age you start learning your ABCs. It'd be kindergarten, I guess.
Yeah, kindergarten. Yeah.
Okay, so go to kindergarten and it's like, okay, how do I think about teaching the ABCs from a Christian worldview? Well, I'm teaching little ones, which is something we're Psalm 78. We're passing on there's a kind of teaching the next generation that's inherent in kind of the foundation of the world. Moms and dads should teach their children as they rise up and lie down as they walk along the way, should teach them the statutes of the Lord, and we should train the next generation. All that's true. So teaching is a godly thing. But then you're teaching them to ABCs so that they can someday put those ABCs together into words, and then they can put those words into sentences to communicate ideas. Well, it's amazing to think about teaching someone to read when God wrote a book. So now all of a sudden you're a kindergarten teacher and you're teaching the ABCs, and you're, as a Christian, you know that God has communicated to the world through a book, 66 books, inspired, inerrant, authoritative, God-breathed book called the Bible. And in order to read it, you've got to understand sentences. And in order to understand sentences, you have to understand words. And to understand words, you have to know the ABCs. And now all of a sudden, my teaching takes on a different weight. Yeah. Teaching the ABCs, coloring those papers, writing those down in order, memorizing the song takes on a different weight when you see it as part of a Christian worldview. So now you're not just a godly teacher, you are seeing your profession from a Christian worldview. That's why I tell my kids when they say, I hate reading. Well, don't say that. God wrote a book.
That's right.
God wrote a book.
Yeah.
Why do I need to learn to read? God wrote a book. Yeah. So it's just seeing all of life, not just being a Christian in our daily lives, which we 100% should be.
Yeah.
But it's thinking about all of life from this mental map, this structure in our head, this kind of what Charles Taylor would talk about, this kind of social imaginary, this kind of way we think about the world. And I'm saying, and I want students to do, I want myself to do, and you to do, and people around me, and my kids, my family, see all of life through, and I'm stealing this from John Calvin, through the spectacles of Scripture. So he would talk about you need to, if you're going to understand God, you need to see God through the spectacles of Scripture. And I'm just broadening that out and saying, yes, and if you're going to understand all of life from a Christian worldview, you should see through the spectacles of the Bible.
Well, and that's, if you think about what we do here, and then we're going to talk on a future episode on, different models of higher education, Christian higher education, how those things fit together. But I mean, a primary role that we should be doing on a campus like this is helping students to see that, not just teaching them how to be a nurse, but how that fits together. And that would be, sort of what I would hope would be a draw for families that are thinking through, okay, what do I want my student to become? How do I want them to flourish? Where are they going to be best trained with not just a skill, but to see that connection, and that's what we're trying to do in the classrooms here is build those connections. And then I think even how we're trying to think through our work and with our teams, what we do to help even filter that down to my admissions counselors, my marketing team, your student life staff, safety and security,
right.
How does all that kind of fit together? Because it is really true that grounding, that lens to see it, makes the mission that much more energizing, exciting, fulfilling to see, okay, this is how this all fits together.
Yeah.
This is how what I'm doing.
Bigger.
Yeah. And you almost need that, or else it's really easy to, I worked in insurance for 4 years trying to market insurance policies, which, there's certainly ways, it can have tiebacks to scripture and, trying to hold, reduce risk and serve those who've been damaged or have had loss. And this kind of comes into help, but a lot of it's profit, corporate profit, just, generating cash. But if I didn't have any, this is probably one of the things I even, struggled with was it became harder to find those ties. And if you don't have them and you're not consistently thinking about them, it can be hard to sort of stay engaged and passionate and feel like you're fulfilling what God's calling you to do. So it is really important to pursue these things.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we want to cultivate a Christian worldview, and it's just never something you shut off. Thinking about my staff and even as you're talking, like what would be a good way for us to help our directors at different levels to understand what it means to undertake their work from a particularly Christian worldview, and to think about not just being a Christian at work, but how to think about their work Christianly. And it might be a good exercise to say, hey, this next year, one of the things I'd love to see is give me 2 paragraphs, and it becomes part of a staff meeting where let's think about, Christina Hart oversees our camps and conferences and all of the event space. And how do you think about your work from a Christian perspective? Like, how does your work fit into the purposes of God?
Yeah, not just SBU, but how does your day-to-day of serving camps that are coming? Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to go do that for myself right now too. That's right.
Well, that's something that, I see my work, and I did have to give some thought when I left. So I was a pastor for 15 years.
You talked about people that came up to you and be like, hey,
you're leaving the ministry.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's not true. But I had to think about, what am I doing? How does it fit? Because I didn't leave the ministry because everything is ministry. Everything's sacred, right? And so Paul, for me, in Colossians 1, labor and toil to present people mature in Christ. I think I'm still trying to do that. I mean, this morning from 7 a.m. to right before I came over here to do this, so for an hour, I sat with students and talked about the nature of faith. What does it mean to believe in Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of sins? And so we talked about that for an hour every Thursday, right? Or we're preaching in chapel, or sitting yesterday and dealing with some people who have done some things they shouldn't have done, but then be able to offer gospel comments into their life, to speak gospel to them. So I see how this work contributes to the purposes of God, and I think everybody should just take some time to think through that for themselves.
Yeah, and I think last thing I would think on it, one of the books recent years that was really compelling to me was The Benedict Option by Rod Dreher.
Yeah.
And I think for Christians now, because I felt it myself too, like there's this draw, okay, the world's a mess.
Yeah.
Like there's just so much chaos. There's so much, the church has made so many mistakes. I just want to pull back.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to go back to being sacred, secular, go to a monastery and just separate from the world and pursue Jesus.
Right. It's a
with the community.
kind of retreatist mentality.
Yeah. And so there's a part of that is really compelling. And I think there's probably even elements of it that, are worth thinking about how we can integrate into stuff, especially on a community like a college campus like this. But the big picture, and thinking through it the way we've been talking this morning, is you can't pull back. I mean, we have to go into the world in all these ways and then do it with this mindset that we've been talking about.
So 2 comments. Yes, I agree with that 100%. We can't just retreat from the world. We don't need to necessarily become monks again. However, Rod Dreher doesn't mean that. He doesn't.
No, he doesn't. No, you're right. Yeah.
Dreher comes back and he actually writes, if you go visit his website where he offers some explanation, what he meant in the Benedict option was there needed to be a time because we needed to strengthen the home front. So there needed to be a moment to pull back and retreat so that we could strengthen the home front to re-engage. And so there's probably some, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, strengthen the home and then re-engage, but you can't retreat and then we're doing so to strengthen the home and then you never engage. I think that's what happens is a lot of people would say, oh, Dreher said, or somebody like that, Dreher, however you say his name, I don't know if it's Dreher, we needed to retreat and strengthen the home. That's what we're doing. I'm like, yeah, that's what you're doing. And you've been doing for 10 years. You've never re-engaged the world. And so Christians need to engage the world with the gospel. We need to engage the world by living in it as Christians and thinking about the world from a consistently Christian worldview.
Yep.
So cultivate that in your heart and mind. Let your minds be renewed, Romans 12, right? Let the Bible shape the mental map in your head. Let the Bible be the kind of color of the lenses, the glasses you see through. And then live for God's glory in all that you do.
All of Christ for all of life.
All of Christ for all of life.
There you go. Couple little that we mentioned a little bit, but some big stuff happening this weekend in particular. Our tree lighting, and it'll be done by the time this gets published. But looking forward to
first annual Christmas tree lighting. Looking forward to after Festival of Christmas come out, and even if you miss this year, we'll do it next year. After Festival of Christmas come out, we'll sing some songs together, do a countdown, light the tree, sing a couple other songs, have hot chocolate, and be done. And you can hang out in the cold as long as you want.
Hopefully not too cold. We'll see. But yeah, an exciting, fun time of season. And commencement's next Friday.
Yeah.
So winter commencement. That's always a great culmination for the semester. Well, thanks as always for listening. Hopefully this was encouraging to whatever work or field you are in, and we will be back next time.